Thank you. Before I start, is everyone ready?
Oh yeah, I should get some water too. That's smart.
Yeah, I tend to drink a lot, so I got a cup and the bottle in here.
Maybe we can all do that too.
And just a question, actually, Jared, is this music going to haunt us the entire time? Thank you.
The haunting has stopped.
I appreciate that. And would you like me to do a clap for you or a move to the camera to show that it's that we're starting? Is there anything you want for a start card or anything? Okay, I normally just do a clap so that everyone knows that we've begun. I will do that so that you all know. So how are you all three feeling good?
Yeah.
Anything else you need? Josh? Great.
I just have one question. Do we want to stay muted if we all have headphones? Does it matter?
Did everyone else just lose Jared a little bit there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Say that one more time, please, Jared. Okay. And because there is probably a 0.2 of a second of a lag, I will suggest whenever I'm doing my podcast, I tell my guests to just give it a half second before you respond, if there are direct questions. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Then let us begin. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to See Us All Ages. We're talking tonight about removing the barriers to access for creatives. What we wanted to do was assemble a group of community-centric creators and curators to actively discuss the existing barriers to under 19 and over 19 emerging creatives. We wanted to establish some of the impacts of barriers and facilitate a discussion on what potential solutions could be. So this talk is intended for both under and over 19 emerging creators and industry stakeholders, industry professionals as well, and government and community, including guardians, caretakers, and supporters of the industry. So before we start, I want to say a big hello to everybody. My name is Kristina Lau. I will be moderating this panel. I want to say a big thank you to Jimmy at Music BC and the whole Music BC team, to Lindsay and Kentia, wonderful people. If you're not a member, become a member. I would also like to say thank you to Finn Parks, who has done such an incredible job of facilitating these series. And thanks to Montgomery Sound. Montgomery Sound, Jared is with us today as the technical producer. Many, many thanks to Jared for making sure that we are seen and heard. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of everybody first, and then we're going to roll straight into it. I'm going to start with Josh Eastman. Josh, wave for us, my dear. Josh Eastman goes by the pronouns he and they. Josh is a Vancouver-based music producer, composer, educator, engineer, multi-instrumentalist, and executive director of Western Canada's only not-for-profit music studio, Helm Studios. Their work has been featured on CBC Radio, DC Comics, Legends of Tomorrow, and in Exclaim magazine. Josh has worked alongside Juno, Tony, and Polaris nominated artists and become a sought-after collaborator by many up-and-coming artists. You can find Josh on his Instagram at Helm_studios. Thanks, Josh. Second, we have Lisa Sahatciu, who goes by Sahatciu, an artist and radio host. Say hi, my darling.
Hi.
Sahatciu is a 17-year-old singer-songwriter and producer from Kosovo, now based in Vancouver, BC. Her musical endeavors started at the age of 6 with piano, and she soon after discovered the passion for drumming, guitar, and music production. Performing at a variety of venues from a young age, she has made dozens of appearances at festivals in Europe, such as opening for Miley Cyrus at Sunny Hill Festival in 2019, and Canada, where she now continues to record singles and work on other projects. In 2019, together with her music program classmate, Sahatciu started hosting a brand new show at CJSF 90.1 FM radio called Vibe Check. The show promotes local Vancouver artists of all genres, backgrounds, and ages, offering a safe space for upcoming artists to showcase their talent. So make sure that you check out CJSF 90.1 FM radio Vibe Check. This led to the creation of Sunnyside song camps once COVID-19 hit, which I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about. Sahatciu's preferred pronouns are she and her, and you can find her on Instagram and Facebook at itSahatciu. So ITSAHATI. Oh, that works quite well. Thank you, Sahatciu, for joining us. And finally, last but very much not least, Ruby Singh, interdisciplinary artist, facilitator, and educator. And Ruby, who goes by he, him, is going to introduce himself.
Yeah, what's up, good people? My full name is Rupinder Singh Sidhu. Most everybody calls me Rup or Ruby. I'm totally comfy with either. I use he, him pronouns. I'm coming to you from the stolen, occupied lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'm an uninvited guest on these lands, an interdisciplinary artist, composer, producer, and educator, and facilitator. And we'll get to know a little bit more about me as we go along.
Fantastic. And we can find you at Instagram at RubySingh_. And that's RubySingh_. And myself, I am Kristina Lau. As I said, I remain Kristina Lau to this day. I am an artist advocate. I am the Executive Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility for Prolific Media Holdings, which is a transmedia holdings company based out of New York that does fancy entertainment things. And I am the founder of Bombshell Brunches and enjoy moderating panels and hosting things, including dinner parties and tea parties. So we continue. Let us take a big breath and then go into our introduction, which includes our verbiage. One thing I do want to say before we go any further is that I have to credit Ruby with reminding us to take big breaths throughout our session tonight. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking for myself anyway, to be on a panel. And I want to say thank you for reminding us to keep breathing. So if anything comes up for any of you out there and it's a little bit uncomfortable, let's take that time to make some space and make some breath in our body. So thank you, Ruby, for reminding us about that. So as you know, my dears, this panel is intended for all people, but in the interest of time, the panelists and Finn have discussed some pretty key people that we hope are listening tonight. Emerging creatives and creators under 19 and over 19, if you happen to be emerging in the industry. We thought of using the term youth, but we weren't sold on it. Government, regulatory, and decision-making bodies. We hope you're listening. This is an important conversation and we welcome you here. Caregivers and supporters of creatives and creators. Now, I want to talk to you about emerging creatives and creators and the verbiage that we came to collectively as a group, and to thank Finn again for facilitating that space. These are people both under 19 years of age and over 19 years of age. So I will use the verbiage for under 19s if it pertains to that demographic specifically. If not, we believe that all creators and creatives are equal at any age. So creatives and creators. We've chosen those words because artists and music industry professionals are not all always musicians, and we value every professional in this industry. We're a team. And finally, I use the term stakeholders a lot. Sometimes I say this if I just want to mean anyone who has a vested interest in the outcome, topic, or discussion. So I say this because we are learning to use our words differently every day. So I'm really grateful to you for your understanding that this is an ongoing learning process. In terms of the outcome, I'm going to ask some questions and I'm going to take some notes based on 3 main themes. At the end, I hope that you as an audience will feel seen as we discuss some pertinent topics, hear some insights from our community and industry panelists, and take away some action steps that you can start right away to feel more empowered in whatever space you hold in music and in creativity. That was a lot of introduction, okay? I know that, but we're ready to start, proper start now. So, my panelists, let's start with topic number 1, which we've titled collectively, Start With Now. Why is it that under 19 emerging creatives are so important to the music ecosystem? I'd like to ask Ruby this question first, and as someone who works so strongly in the youth circles and in those emerging creative circles.
I mean, for any ecosystem to function properly, it needs a good sense of renewal. It needs to have proper cycles of, gestation, seeding, growth, decay, and rebirth. So to me, it's really important. It's an integral part of how we form community in general. And if we're looking at the music community at large, doesn't function properly if we don't have young folks involved.
Great. Thank you. What have you found when it comes to emerging creatives, when you're working with a number of, can you tell us just a little bit about the organizations that you work with? I know you mentioned there are a few major ones and there are a lot, but tell us a little bit about
I'll go
them.
through them. I'll jump through them quick. I've been a longtime teacher and community outreach / partnership programmer at the Sarah McLachlan School of Music. I work with another organization called Access to Media Education Society, which aims to put the media tools in the hands of young people so they can tell their own stories. And then I also do work with Coastal Jazz, running the Cypher program, which is a program dedicated to emerging artists to help them bridge all those gaps that we see for young people in the music industry.
So how can people find this information? We have a lot of people who potentially are under 19 or are emerging creatives. Is there somewhere central that they can find these organizations?
Well, their websites, definitely. Sarah McLachlan School of Music and, of course, Coastal Jazz. Both of those should be able to take you to those programs.
And the Access to Media?
Access to Media, again, on their website as well, accesstomedia.org. You can find out what programs they're offering and working with right now.
And so with these, what have you found with working with these organizations? Is there a what's the taste for wanting to be a creative in this industry in BC? Is it, have you got an oversubscribed program? Is it?
Absolutely. We have constant wait lists for everything. Everything is oversubscribed. If we had more resources, we would run them longer and more often, for sure.
Okay, so note to government: can we make some more funding? And what is the funding? What are the costs? How much are there barriers financially to access? What do you know about these things?
These organizations that I work for do not charge. The Sarah McLachlan School of Music is free. Coastal Jazz provides that program for free as well, and AMES as well provides all their programs for free, and they're targeted. We try to make the folks that are purposefully pushed to the margins by society. We try to create more space for trying to erase those kind of margins that are set up for folks.
Great. Okay, great. And so thank you. I know I grilled you a little bit there, Ruby. But I want for people to understand where they can access a lot of these resources, because we had an earlier conversation with Lisa, who I would like to ask now. Sahatciu, in your experience, what resources are available to you, and why do you think specifically under 19 emerging creatives are so important to the musical ecosystem?
Right. Yeah, I think for people who are maybe still in high school, that's the place where they can find or where they feel most comfortable finding help. That's how I got to get my radio opportunity by an internship because of my music production program that was offered at my school. So I think definitely for people who are around my age, around 17, or definitely check out school programs. They're kind of hidden. They tend to be kind of like not super obvious. So definitely research. But I think it's really important to get young people's input because we're the reflection of what is going on in the world. Everything that we've taken in, either from social media or news or wherever, we reflect that. So I think it's definitely important that people under 19 get heard, and we're basically the future. So definitely more opportunities would be amazing.
You are the future. I love that you said the reflection of what is going on. I think you're the reflection of what's going on and what's going to be, right? You
Right.
know, you all got on TikTok before the rest of us got on TikTok.
Yeah.
So, I think really tapping into that resource is important. Josh, you do so much. You are such a giving person, and having a studio space that is accessible. Tell me about why under 19 specifically emerging creatives are so important to the music ecosystem for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So um, I think Lisa kind of hit the nail on the head there, talking about both the future of both music and culture and our world in general, but also about being that reflection. And I think that the lens that young people look at the world through is so different than those of previous generations of those who have existed in the world longer, and new creative ideas and discoveries happen when people are willing to take risks and when people have more time on their hands and less responsibilities. And there's a very different outlook that young people have on the world, and I think that's always such a benefit to creating fresh perspectives.
Yeah, I love the difference in terms of the outlook. I think when we what I'm hearing when we're talking about this is that there's this sense of renewal. It's not a new concept that people who are coming up into the world are coming up with fresh ideas, with a fresh lens, with a new perspective. I think one of the things I wanted to ask you all about, and this is just an open question and maybe a dialogue moment. For me, we're at a stage in our existence as a Western society that we live in currently, where the digital age is far surpassing a lot of traditionally older generations' capabilities. So we have an exponential rise in digital social technology. We have an exponential rise in societal awareness and social consciousness. And I know that there's still a lot of work to be done, but we have access to technology that we've never had before. My question now is, do you think that the under 19s emerging creatives have access to sufficient resources to be able to train them on that technology that is rising so exponentially? Free for all.
That actually just cut out for a second for me.
The whole question cut out for you?
Sorry, just the last bit. Do you mind repeating the end?
Just when I was talking about technology, we have an exponential rise in technology. And my question was, do you think that under 19s currently have access to sufficient resources to be able to equip them for a future in entertainment, for a future in creation of this music?
Thank you.
If I can start, I think what's amazing is that the future that I think might be coming is being created inside the social media world. So I don't know if we have training or whether this is becoming the entertainment world, right? Like so many things are happening, like on Instagram lives, on TikTok lives, like so many people go live together, and like huge campaigns and stuff are like, okay, be there at like 12 p.m. And then that's like basically like watching, I don't know, SNL or something just on Instagram live. So I don't know. Times are changing, but yeah.
That's interesting. I think there's intuitive software. The future is more intuitive, right? So younger generations, under 19 emerging creatives seem to be figuring it out as they go.
Yeah.
As long as you have
for
the
sure.
technology itself is intuitive. And so maybe this is a conversation about access to technology full stop rather than training on that technology.
Yeah, I think, it's hard to have this conversation without thinking of the digital divide. Access to technology, economy, where, when we look at rural communities, rural indigenous communities, what accessibility exists there in comparison to, I think we're all Vancouver based on this panel, right?
Yes.
So yeah, technology is definitely a large part of life in the city, but in the work that I've done in rural BC, access and training to that technology is just it's severely lacking for sure. So I think that's also like really important to keep in mind when we think about this idea of these digital leaps. Who are those digital leaps happening for?
Right.
Who are they leaving behind?
And how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Josh, do you have anything that
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with Ruby. And I think that, being Vancouver-based creatives and community directors can often give us a false sense of connectedness with technology, because we assume that if those around us have it, then everyone has it. And that's simply not the case. And of course, the further into a cashless society, the further into a digital society we get, the further removed those without access are. And it's a very easy thing to kind of get ahead of ourselves in as technology advances so quickly, as the way that we market and share and create changes so quickly. In the weekly or bi-weekly workshops that we give at Helm, one of the things that I try and emphasize for up and coming music producers is that the gear, the technology isn't what will make you a gifted creator or be able to share your work. But that's still assuming at a baseline that somebody has a smartphone, a computer, a tablet, something of the sort, and internet access and all these kind of things, which isn't the reality for a lot of people. And I think until everyone has access to those things, which are really becoming basic needs, we have to stop and think, what is for everyone, and what does accessibility look like when not all your bases are covered and not all people have access.
Thank you, Josh. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about those weekly and bi-weekly workshops that you offer. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Sure. So the workshops started as a way of kind of opening up our community and getting connected with artists and creators outside of Vancouver and outside of BC. And so we kind of just take polls on what folks are interested in learning and interested in hearing about. And sometimes I'll take on those workshops myself and just give up my time and talk about whatever is relevant. And at other times we'll bring on other creatives to talk about whatever their skill set is and just share their knowledge with other people. So we've got Olivia Kwan from Monarch Studios giving a workshop on the 18th. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Oh,
And Ashanti Mutinta Backwash, who's a rapper from Montreal who won the Polaris Prize last year. She's giving a workshop. I believe it's on the 28th of June, but I'll have to check on that. So go to our Instagram page at Helm__studios to stay updated on that, because you definitely don't want to miss those.
oh, absolutely. And Helm__studios on Instagram is going to update everyone on how they can register for future workshops in general,
Yes.
right? Great.
Yes.
So tell me, just while I've got you, tell me a little bit more about why you started this studio.
Well, I'd kind of been in and out of different studio spaces and within the music community for a while, and noticed this huge lack of support between the sort of DIY culture and the commercial studio culture. And there is a huge barrier to access for queer artists and for BIPOC artists and for any marginalized folks in the community to have access to music and music production. But one thing that we think about as technology advances is there's this conversation about, well, now anyone can create music, so what's your excuse? But the reality is that those who are working full-time or more, trying to pay the unreasonable rent in Vancouver, which is a whole other topic, and take care of their basic needs, are not often able to commit the time it takes to learn every skill that is surrounding modern day music. It's not just picking up a guitar and playing. There's also, you know, recording and engineering and the production side of things, mixing, mastering, distribution, all these kinds of things. And there wasn't really a sort of, there just seemed to be a big void that no one was filling. And so myself and my board of directors just decided that that was a space that we felt we needed to step into. And so Helm was born, and we've been able to work with the artists who are up and coming and emerging in the city, and give them a professional quality product that they can then use to insert themselves into the greater music community with you know, a product that is competitive against those who have the means to fund, you know, a project at a commercial studio, or who have the capacity to, you know, learn, whether it's through taking lessons or through just having free time to study and work on their craft. So we try and kind of become a support for those folks and make a more equitable and even playing field.
What a wonderful thing. Thank you. And thank you very much for that work. Which is, we've already started into our second topic, which are these barriers, right? So let's just reset for a second. You know, we've talked a lot about, you know, the nature of emerging creatives who are under 19. We've talked about the different organizations that do exist that are free, but also the barriers that include that technology, that, you know, the access that we take for granted. I mean, if you're watching this, you're already, you know, one of the precious few that has access to a computer, that has access to digital technology to be able to gain from this. So I'd really like to highlight for us to be aware as we move on as creatives, as leaders in whatever fields, as we develop as human beings, to remember. And I think, Ruby, again, thank you so much for that kindness in acknowledging that divide so strongly, because it is easy to get sucked into a vortex. It's easy for us to feel like we're moving on and we're doing well, and that echo chamber that we talk about so often among my peers. So what I love is that this space also holds a lot of opportunity for people if they can seek out and find it. So, you know, there might be wait lists for SOM, there might be wait lists for access to media, but they exist and they're there. And you can contact, you know, Ruby for more questions, just to put Ruby on the spot there. You can contact Josh. You
Absolutely.
can, you know, you can contact Sahatciu, you can contact me, and Music BC. And again, Music BC is designed to be a central resource for that. So let's talk a little bit more about these barriers, because we had a great conversation about barriers, and I promise there is so much positivity as well. But I really want to make sure that we're seeing from an under 19 perspective and an all ages emerging perspective, what are these barriers? So, Sahati, what did you find the toughest thing about when you moved, you came over and you went to high school? You mentioned something on our call the other day, and I think I'd really like you to just repeat that, what you found really, really difficult in high school.
Right. So, as a musician, I think everybody, especially when you're in high school, you just want to be involved as much as you can in what's offered in your school, which for me was just band class. And what I found was that if you weren't kind of integrating into the band that's offered in your school from like grade 1 or 2, I mean grade 8, which is first year of high school, then it's kind of hard to become a part of it. And although I did have musical experience, I started playing the piano from grade 1, and I still couldn't like fit in with the speed of like how that curriculum went by, because it was totally different. And I quit after 2 weeks of band, even though I had years of experience. So I was just thinking of how like people who maybe don't have the opportunities to ever learn, how can they start even if they're in just grade 8? Like it's quite hard, you know.
I think that's a really great point. And I wanted to throw this to Ruby as well, because some people don't even have band programs. Some people don't have access to music education, let alone production or engineering. Don't even get me started on the practical side of those things. So Ruby, can you speak to, what your experience has been with some youth who have people under the age of 19 who are in high school age, who have come to you and you found a connection with them through one of the organizations? What does that experience look like?
I mean, for me, it gives me life, right? Providing a space where folks can unlock their passions is really like all I want to do in this world. There's just when folks can follow their passions and really be supported on it, I think that's one of the most important things we can do, not only as educators, but as a society as a whole, in bringing people together. So, through the music school, you come as you are. Through the Sarah McLachlan School of Music, you come as you are. We offer, piano, guitar, music production classes, Ableton, turntablism. There's MCs, there's singers, there's choir, there's musical theater. There's all these various different offerings, and we really try and approach, and percussion, of course. We really try and approach it from a place of where the teachers can share their passions, because that I think is another aspect of things that I think works really well. There is like, I'm passionate about music production, so we were able to start an electronic music program. I'm passionate about hip hop music and percussion, so we started kind of a global hip hop vibe where we had like, a crew of like 26 people, like 13 on drums, 10 vocalists, and marimbas and turntablism and all sorts of stuff happening all together. So it can really be just such a caring space where folks can also like come to find a sense of themselves.
So when people arrive, what are some of the biggest complaints? What are some of the biggest complaints that people say when they get to you? Is it my school didn't understand what I wanted to do, or I don't know what I want to do, or I didn't have a program? What are some of the major barriers that they've articulated to you over the years?
Well, because we're in a place of reducing those barriers, it's not necessarily what they're coming at first. They're generally coming into this space being like, it's kind of like a kid in a candy store of music. You know what I mean?
Or
like
me in a candy store.
Yeah,
Anyone
exactly. And any musician I've known that has come through the music school there, obviously, Sarah McLachlan has done an incredible job of like securing ongoing funding, and a floor of a building was donated for what we're doing, and the kids were able to like help with the design of the school and decide what colors the walls were and stuff. And when you walk in, there's like 4 rooms set up with like drums, bass, guitars, and microphones. So it's a space that offers that, and what I want in the world is more of that. More spaces that are dedicated to that, because we get to capacity. I mean, especially with COVID, we get to capacity real quick. But even outside of that, there's it's pretty rare that we don't have a wait list. And shout out to St. James Academy as well, and a few other places in the city. I just spoke to some folks down at Raycam Community Center. So that would be the other places that I just really encourage people to check out, is their community centers. It's generally full of caring adults. That's what they should be, anyways.
Yes, we would hope so. And I mean, I think one of the barriers that I wanted to highlight that you mentioned is it's wonderful that it's fueled by passion, but passion is not enough to sustain an entire industry on. And the first question, just bringing us back to that first question, under 19 creatives and all ages of emerging creatives and creators are so important. I call it the McDonald's effect. If you want to get people in understanding the value of something, you get them in the playground when they're 3 years old. You expose people to the value of what it is that you are doing. And the unfortunate society in some aspects that we live in knows how to capitalize on that. But the arts and culture community tends to lean on being fueled by passion, simply because people will do it no matter what. And I think that's a conversation, for me particularly as well. I love that I hear so much from people who are as generous as you all are, but the conversation we've got to have as a collective is how to sustain our community, how to sustain and value and encourage audiences to value what we do, because it is an intrinsic part of all of our lives. It's in our cells, whether you're a musician, a music creator, or a creative, or any kind of creator, you're a storyteller of some kind, you are affecting other people's lives. So I just wanted to loop us back around to that very first question, and then move over to Josh and say, I have a very particular passion for people who are behind the lens. So a lot of people think in a career counseling session when in high school, they say, if you like music, then you're going to either be a lead singer in a band, which is really hard to do, or you're going to be the lead role in a TV show, which is really hard to do. They don't often talk about production, sound engineering, sound design, composition, so many event management, a lot of the other careers within the creative and music industries. So for you, Josh, what have been some of the comments or barriers that you've heard articulated over time in running your studio?
I think undeniably the greatest barrier is funding and financial aid. I don't think there's anything that competes with that, especially being a space that provides fairly full service, whether it's beginning to write your first song or whether it's recording your 100th album. We're kind of there for all of that process. So in terms of I think, as Ruby said, of just coming as you are, I really think that's an important part of any organization that really practices equity, is really being able to provide what people need where they are. And so, I mean, we're certainly not able to do everything, but I think like that's something that we don't really face a lot of barriers once an artist is here. It's having any semblance of sustainability, both for our organization and also for the artists, is it all comes down to funding. And I think what you were saying about passion is that there are many artists and many creatives like myself who are burning the candle from both ends, trying to keep what they believe in alive. And there's a lot of people who see that passion as enough, but unfortunately it's not, because my rent isn't paid with passion and my studio isn't supported by passion, and if my equipment breaks, I can't buy it with passion, and it is the most important part, but unfortunately it's not everything. And the way that we see value in terms of product and value in terms of marketability versus value of arts and culture is so divided. And it's you know, music is used in everything. It's whether you're in the elevator, whether you're on hold with a company, or whether you're watching a film, there's music and it's clearly valued. But there's been some kind of propagation of this idea that because everyone wants to do it for fun, what's the point in paying anybody, because they're going to do it anyway. But
Right.
I mean, the art, when people feel safe and when they feel secure, when they feel that there's a future for them, is going to be so much greater and more sustainable than the art created by burnt out, exhausted people.
I think that is very well said. And I think, you know, I don't want us to paint too bleak a picture of what it is to work in this industry because, you know, for those of you listening, you know, we will do it anyway. My older sister used to always say to me, and still says to me, you're never going to not be an artist. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you will never not be one. And that really gives me a lot of comfort, and also then drives me to find the solution, because I don't really like to take no, I like to ask how. And, you know, you asked, you know, you've articulated, Josh, that, you know, it's a very difficult road in some aspects, but it's also so much more rewarding than living 90% of your life for a paycheck that just gets you by, that buys you some things, that doesn't help you to realize your full self. So tell me a couple of just really cool success moments that you've had, whether it's someone who's come through your workshop and has taken it and realized that they want to be a producer and that was their light bulb moment. And I'm going to ask each one of you one of these things, because I do, for as much as I know that there's a, you know, we have a lot of work to do, we also have a wonderful space and opportunities that do exist here.
Hey, just before we go on, I want to just kind of review this and hit this a little bit harder as well, which is
Sure.
there are haves and have-nots, and that's how our world has been working. And the music industry in and of itself is situated within capitalism, which is situated within unsustainability and way too many people having way too much that they can't spend in a lifetime, and you know, us creating this world. So let's, you know, it's within the music industry, a certain thing exists, but it's also existing within these larger scales of capitalism. And, you know, we started having this conversation when we were all together before, you know, and I just want to make sure that the only importance that art making doesn't get is its marketability. Is its idea of turning it into a product, for something to sell. Art making is something that has given soul and culture and value that is beyond economics for a long, long time, for society, for culture, for humans as a whole, for a long, long time. So we will be singing. We were singing when you know, humans entered this world. We will be singing well into our time when we leave this. So let's as far as that kind of zoom out and think of the industry and where the industry is at. The industry is engulfed within an unsustainable capitalist system that is white supremacist and racist and sexist. So that's what we're dealing with. As I think the oldest person on this panel, you know, a part of me feels terrible for not fighting harder against those things in my time, for what we're leaving the young people to pick up. Like the fact that young people can't really even sell the music that they make anymore, and some like company is going to make more of a profit off of their music than they ever will is just insane to me. And the fact that we as a music industry have let it get to here is definitely, I feel it on my shoulders, and I think other older folks in the music industry should also feel it on their shoulders for what we're actually leaving as far as steps for young people to enter an industry that is riddled with all of these issues. That's it. I'll
I
get off
think
my
that's
soapbox now.
I think that's a good point. I mean, but I also, when I studied the history of music, we looked at, troubadours and patronage, and the fact that the arts have always been, uh, from a financial perspective, superfluous, but from a cultural perspective, um, you know, like ultra important, the most important thing. It binds us all together. So I think it's an ongoing conversation, but I certainly don't think it's a new one. And I think that it's multiple. It's something that, as we move in society, are constantly needing to continually address. And one thing that I'm pretty excited about is the fact that right now, and yes, granted, it's the people who have access to digital media, who have access to smartphones, but the audience has started to become the creators. And that is a very fascinating turn of events. And I think that, when we have this conversation, I'd love to hear what you think, Sahatciu, about this. And I'd love to hear a success story from you, because I mean, you performed with Miley Cyrus, you got an opportunity. And do you feel like you can have a career in this industry? And what does that actually look like to you? Because I'm gonna push in onto that as well.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely weird how opportunities work nowadays. I mean, or have always worked. I'd love to say that music is always in the end going to be about the music, but in this moment, I don't feel like I can say that fully, because of the music that we hear on radio most of the time isn't probably the best. That the artists that are on the radio, that's not their best. Like, I know everyone could do so much better than commercial radio music, but that's just the way that if you want to live, if you want to eat something tomorrow, then you have to make what the radios are playing, which is kind of sad, but you know what, it's okay. But going back to the performing part, I think that has definitely been a big change for me and the band that I played with. It's been an opportunity that it's just like we were so confused, like how it happened. We didn't even have tickets for the show, but we somehow got to play it. And it was just really good to talk to artists such as Dua Lipa, Gashi, Nyomza there, and kind of see like a different perspective and see how they're people. And it's truly inspiring when... Hello? Did I get cut off?
Oh, you're back.
I think it just froze there a little bit.
Oh, you're
Did
back.
I get cut off?
Back.
Okay.
You said it's really inspiring when you see those people like Dua Lipa and...
Yeah, and you realize that, it is possible to kind of show yourself, be your true self out there, even if you have to make a couple of commercial songs, if that's what it takes to have something to live with, and then just take the rest of the time to create music you want to make, then, well, that's just how it is at the moment, I guess.
I want to add to this, because I specialize in career pathways in media and entertainment, within that job that I work in for Prolific. And one of the conversations I had when I was working at a recording school with a lot of engineers and producers was, a dentist doesn't tell you that they want to be a dentist and only remove the molars and work on a particular street in London. They don't do that. They don't say, I'm going to be a dentist. And granted, a dentist's career is a much more linear career. It's much more of you do A, B, C, and then D happens. But the reality is we do a whole bunch of things that we don't love. I do not love doing my admin. Nobody loves filing their taxes. And for those of you in high school, if you love that, I think you will make a lot of money helping other artists do that. So that can be your side hustle, and that, But my point is, I think, Sahatciu, you come up with a really good point, because there is a difference between making art for art's sake and making art as a business. And I think one of the things that I would always encourage people to ask themselves at any age, at any point that they're joining any career, any industry, any community, is, do I want to do this just for me? Or do I want to do this to make money? Because it will look very different. Your choices will be very different depending on what the answer is. And one thing that I love as an artist, as someone who is working on my album, who has played main stages, who has done national tours in different capacities, what I love to be able to say is that I created a sustainable career. That does not mean I am on a national tour all the time. And my unfortunate opinion is that we are fed a concept of what success is in this industry by those people who want to capitalize on our aspiration towards that. So when you are growing into whatever position you're in, when you're growing into whatever creative capacity you're coming to, please continue to ask yourself that question. What am I willing to do? What do I want to achieve out of this? And am I only willing to be the dentist that pulls only the molars? Because if that's the case, then you can get really good at being the only dentist in the world that pulls molars, but you're going to be working your whole life just for that one thing. You're going to give up a lot of things in order to do that. Josh, I want to ask you what your thoughts are on this, because you're a producer as well. You're an engineer. You're technically and a musician.
Yes.
And so how much music are you making? While you're running this, you're making your music, right?
I don't make music for myself anymore. And that was a casualty of becoming a full-time I guess technician would be the word. Now for me, that sacrifice was a no-brainer, because I wasn't happy as a performer. It wasn't the career path for me. It wasn't where I felt most at home. And what I felt most comfortable doing was facilitating and assisting others in telling stories and using my privilege and my experience to uplift other people. I had the joy of working on a project recently where I was able to unite an immigrant who fled a war in the Congo, a queer Latinx artist, and another queer artist from Macau on one track, each telling an individual part of their unique narrative. And that wouldn't have happened without being able to have that sort of technical facility and that ability to enhance that storytelling and provide a space and a platform for that to happen. And these are the stories that I believe are so important. And I've benefited so much from the privilege in my life, and I just don't feel like my story is the most important to be told. And it's such an honor to be able to provide a space for other people to tell their story, and I don't regret any of that sacrifice. However, I haven't written a song for myself in 2 years, and I did love that, but it's you know, I'm happy to be in the position I am.
So let me ask you a question. Do you still consider it a sacrifice or just a choice then?
That's such a good question. And it is a choice. And I think that I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, I chose to not write a song for 2 years, but I think in doing, we're immediately choosing to not do the other thing. You know, one door opens, another closes, and those pathways get redirected. And so there were choices that led me to not having the time to write my own music, but that's not to say that I chose not to write my own music.
Right.
But yeah, I chose a career that doesn't enable me free time for my own music, and that's a choice that I'm happy that the other choices led me here.
Okay, so I and thank you for that. And I think Josh, you put it very well. And I think that Ruby, what I'm hearing from you as well is that you two both have described, what did I write down? Your joy deriving from people self-realizing, from people being able to achieve their creative empowerment. And that joy is a more sustainable joy than the joy that potentially comes from you doing the quote unquote hustle of, working to become an artist in and of yourself. But Ruby, I know that you might have a little bit of it. Okay, so tell me then. Tell me how you've created that dual joy life.
I mean, shit, there's no roadmap for this, like you're saying, right? Like, like how this all works and comes together, you know what I mean? There were times in my life where I was down to my last $100, and my belief is that money is energy, and where we want that to go, I spent it on an instrument, knowing that something good would come of it. So I am a person of faith, I think, underneath it all. I can't help but think, when I think of all these ideas of sustainability and how it could be achieved within the music industry, and how like folks can make their own art and how that would be sustainable, there's just like this crazy idea of a universal basic income that comes to mind that, circumvents all of these, again, capitalist modes that we're used to operating under, that we assume is the only way forward. But this is the first time in history we've had those, that I can remember in my lived history, where we've had those words uttered in Parliament, that everybody in this country deserves a basic income. And then what's possible?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if we go to those fundamental that I believe are flaws on how this colonial structure was set up, and we actually start to like disintegrate those in a form, we start to create a world where like Josh isn't worried about the funding for his place, because it's gonna be sustained through those methods. So I want to think like way outside the box sometimes,
right.
And I know that's not necessarily what this panel is about, so I'm gonna bring myself back.
We don't have that much time, darling.
Yeah, exactly. But like, when I think of, sorry, I'm just playing with stuff. It helps me think. So when I think about kind of my career path, I'd always had this one hand that was like pretty much, well, almost instantly. I didn't start playing music till I was like 20. Right? I didn't have music programs growing up as a kid, and that was something I sought out. I was thankfully hanging out with some a bunch of punk rockers at that point in time, like in their garage studio, and they like threw drumsticks at me one time. We're like, "You should try this out," and I tried it out, and then like my path was ever changed since then. And I think having that feeling later in life of what that creative spark meant to me, what it fulfilled inside of me that I didn't realize existed before, really pushed me to also want to facilitate spaces where that would be possible for other people. And so kind of hand in hand, I started learning things and showing other people those things, and learning things and showing other people those things. It's not like I stepped into like even understanding music theory and all these various different things. I got a ton to still learn. But I think it's the passion end of things that has moved me, and I haven't been moved to like, I like making art. I like making art a lot. And thankfully I've been able to get Canada Council grants and BC Arts Council grants, Music BC, and Creative BC, all these places that we, with our Canadian passports, are able to apply for this funding. Puts us in a very unique place when I talk to my musician friends south of the border. We're in a really unique place that way. So I think because of the accessibility to that kind of funding that exists, as well as the want and desire to create space for creativity to be able to emerge, because I really loved your point about everybody is creative. And that is a fundamental belief I have, is that every single being is creative. We like separate ourselves with these various titles as creatives, and we had a long conversation about that one too. Yeah, so I think there's just a way that we could dedicate more. Like when I see what Sarah McLachlan did that way, you know what I mean? Like the music industry was really, really good to her. You know what I mean? And, you know, her and numerous artists are out there that have made way more money than they're ever going to be able to spend in their lives, that like generations of their family won't be able to spend. So this idea of creating a space where you take that and you create something that can then offer it to the next generation, sending the elevator back down, so to speak. I think that's an incredible, incredible thing that more folks need to think about.
I think that's an exceptional point. And Josh, please.
Oh, I'd love to hop in because I really think after what Ruby said, I was like, we can close the conversation. Universal basic income, everyone can just create art, you know? And I think, but I think it's these radical ideas that sound radical to us as we're indoctrinated into a certain system, but they're radical acts of love and compassion and seeing each and every person as deserving. And universal basic income is a similar concept to this idea of universal music education, or, you know, universal
healthcare,
access to technology, healthcare, all these things that see us as equivalent. And it creates, like, barriers will always exist, but they're reduced by an incomprehensible amount when we all start on the same playing field. And what you're talking about with generational wealth and all these kind of things where inequality is sustainable because of these systems. And there's a quote that I love, which is, "Be ruthless to systems and kind to individuals." And I think that it's these radical acts of compassion that is so essential. We talk about not just jumping into music now and starting now so that you know, it's never too late, and get started while you're ahead, but it's also start making space for others while you can. I had no funds, no means of setting up a space, but I had passion, and I had a vision of, and I had a skill set, and the amount of change I've seen in people's lives has been so heartwarming. And I think we're all, I mean, there are many luxuries and privileges that I have that have brought me to this place, but that's not to say that, you know, as Ruby was saying, with learning with each other, you learn something and you share it. You learn something and you share it. I encourage anybody else to do the same thing that I'm doing, to share the knowledge that they get as they get it, to redistribute their wealth, to redistribute their time. And that's how change happens. And that's how grassroots change happens. And I see that these conversations are not just meant to spark change in systems, but also to spark change in individuals, to say, do what you can now, because it is now and it always will be. And I think it's radical empathy and radical compassion, and seeing every person as equally valid and equally capable of creating and capable of contributing, not just monetary value, but cultural and emotional and philosophical value to the world. That's it. That's all.
Thank you. Sahatciu, I'd love to hear what you think about this as well, about from someone's perspective who is walking into the world with all this talent, all of this capability that all of us have within us. And I want to hear some of your thoughts on how you see the future and what you think you can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm speechless after what I just heard. I feel so blessed to be in this call with these amazing people, but I think what we'd all love to see more is, because all these new opportunities, for example, Helm Studios or Vibe Check, maybe the show that my friends and I created, they all come from a space of being in a place where maybe, I don't want to speak for Josh, but maybe not having as many opportunities as somewhere else. Like, it's always marginalized groups creating spaces for marginalized groups. And I'd love to see more privileged people, whatever that may be, wealth, race, gender. Like, if you're privileged in a way, I'd love to see you use that privilege, because you can definitely just like pass by the, like, just forget that you have that And yeah, I think it's important to, you know, go out of your way and see who is struggling and see how you can help.
I think that's wonderful. I love how you say that. Thank you so much, Sahatciu. And I think what I want to do now, because we need to wrap things up very shortly, but one thing I wanted to pinpoint earlier was that we've been brought up into a system where careers are a ladder and we perceive them as a ladder. But you know, when we talk about it, when I've recently posted about this, careers should be a jungle gym. And really the more important thing is not about climbing the rungs of the ladder, because those rungs can break. But a jungle gym is like that weird hexagonal shape thing. And the most important part is not whether or not you can climb or step on top of other people on that ladder. It's how strong your muscles are to navigate your way around that jungle gym for your rest of your life. And I think what's really important is for us to understand, for those people at any age, whether you're pivoting, I hate that word so much right now, but whether you are, you know, pivoting into a different career, you're looking at your career, you're looking at what you currently do, you don't like your 9-to-5 job, you're in high school, you don't have friends that are musicians, and so you're too afraid to go and reach out to somebody. Understand that being an amazing person, despite a societal construct, requires you to be an athlete at what you do. And being an athlete means that you need to build those muscles. You need to go and discover what you've done so well. I think, Sahatciu, is you've been daring, you've been brave, you've been bold with your choices. You understand your commitment to your art. You understand that sometimes you have to make active choices to sell a commercial song in order to pay something else for you to do the art that you want to do. You understand the game that you're in, and you can make that choice and take that one step on the jungle gym, knowing that it's not necessarily a ladder that you're going to fall off. And I think that's something that I love about a lot of the under 19 emerging creatives, and all of the ages that I speak to, and members of parliament that I speak to as well, who are privileged and white and are fighting. And we don't spend enough time listening to those people because we're trying to get them to listen to us. But the point is, we have to be on the same page. We have to acknowledge that, yes, it's not the perfect system, but if we continue to spend all of our time talking about it not being the perfect system, we're not going to be able to change it. What I love about what Ruby says is that, you know, you were talking about you being very, you know, grateful to have the government funding that's available. And you also have access to, you know, a lot of the younger generation, the emerging creatives who are giving you active feedback, and you're empowering them. And that funding is allowing you to send that elevator back down. I love that that is an action item that every single one of us can take in whatever capacity we have. Josh, what you do is you are so generous that you have even, you know, you call it sacrificing, but really what you're doing is you're making an active choice to elevate other people's stories. And what I want for caregivers to understand is that if someone was your caregiver, what I would want is for them to do their part to make the world a space where you had 2 hours to record no matter what. And that made you better at everything else that you were doing. And every single one of you on this panel has told me a little piece of information about how you've gone into an industry that doesn't love you, with a love for the industry and community itself, and found your way to sustain at any age that you're in, and to give back at the same time. And I think for anyone at any level who is an industry stakeholder, if you're in the government right now and you're listening to this panel, if you are any kind of decision maker, if you are someone who is young and or any age, and you're emerging as a creative and you're wondering what you can do, find other people. We are still here. You can see us. And it might take a bit more than what we'd like it to take in terms of time or energy. But the more of us there are that see us all and us all ages, the more chance we have of, what did you say, Ruby? Dissolving those societal constructs in order to make way for a way that we can be, rather than what we have been.
Yeah, I mean, we're the creative industry, right? If we don't start thinking about these things, who's going to?
Exactly. So with that, is there anything else that you would like to add before we do our closing comments?
I just want to say
I'm
thank
good.
you to everybody on this panel, to you, Kristina, for moderating, and for Music BC for giving us this opportunity to share these ideas and have these conversations. And I hope that they're heard, and I hope that they inspire action. And I'm proud of you all for what you do, and grateful to be connected with each of you. And I'm thankful, because it is this community that makes it worthwhile, and that makes it happen, and that makes the gears go around, and we need each other. And it's wonderful that the people that we need happen to be so caring and giving. And yeah, I'm very grateful for you all. Thank you.
I did think of one thing I do want to say. Go figure. If you want to make pop music, make pop music. I love pop music. I love hip hop. I love R&B. I love pop music. I think what I want for young artists to feel is I want you to feel like what you have to offer, the uniqueness that you bring to the game, is what is going to be what sustains you in this industry. I'm not saying you're going to get like fancy cars and jet planes and shit, but what I am saying is, like, if you follow that passion, and that passion can meet a purpose in the world, which is a great thing that a mentor of mine passed along to me, that beautiful place where passion and purpose can come together is where careers can be born. And that's just what I wish for you all.
I love that. Sahatciu.
I just want to say, as a 17-year-old artist, I feel very grateful that people are even talking about, taking us seriously. I think it's been something that hasn't been done for a very long time. So yeah, and if you want to create an opportunity for younger people or people of all ages, I think you don't need to make it super geared towards only 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds.
Just gear it towards everybody.
Yeah, that idea. Bring us all in. Bring us all in. Each one teach one, and we fight for us. That's what we do.
Yep. Sorry, got cut off.
All good. All good.
So you were saying you don't need to make it just for 16 or 17-year-olds. What was the end of that thought?
Yeah, just whatever you would do for a 25-year-old, just think about, could your 17-year-old kid do it? They probably don't have the experience, but there's nothing stopping them from learning it. And I think they'd be super grateful for the opportunity. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Check out Cypher next time it comes around. It'll kick off again next year, and that's for 16 to 24-year-olds.
Oh, there we
Nice.
go. So thank you so much again for joining us today. What an incredible discussion with such passionate, amazing human beings. I'm sure that the team will be posting all of the links, all of the ways to find all of us online, and I hope that this has been useful. I hope that it's been insightful. I hope mostly that it's been inspiring, because we have an incredible community of people. So I want to say thank you to the team. Thank you to our incredible panelists. Thank you to the production team as well. And I would like to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful rest of your time as a creative. Just a wonderful eternity.
Of artistry.
Of artistry. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my god. Look at the hedgehog.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, hi, hedgehog.
Oh my
cute.
God.